Hey guys, welcome to the Airgun Retiree's YouTube channel. Okay guys, today we're going to rebuild the P-Rod, the new O-ring kit. It's got a slow leak in it. I haven't rebuilt it for about a year and a half, so it's time. So there's the P-Rod. Here's the breakdowns of the P-Rod. And then here's the O-rings that we're going to need. And I like to buy the Captain O-ring sets, rebuild kits, because they're color coded and they're real handy and real easy to determine where an O-ring goes in the gun. So we'll start disassembly of the P-Rod. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is make sure the gun is safe, and I have safety checked it, and I have a range flag in the barrel. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to remove the scope, and I'm going to remove the moderator, and I'm going to get ready to degas the gun, and I'll do that through the fill port. Okay, as you can see, we have the moderator and the scope removed, and I've taken the end cap off of the fill tube. So I'm going to loosen this Foster fitting up down here, and there's not much air in the gun, but I'm going to go ahead and bleed the rest off. Okay, I can hear air coming out now. So we'll slowly let that bleed off. And okay, all the air is bled out of the gun now, and I've removed the Foster fitting on the end of the tank. So I'll set that aside. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take off this front stock, and that's going to allow us to get to the gauge and start removal of the bottom and top of the gun. Okay, we've got the front stock off, and this isn't the original stock that came on the gun. This is a buck rail aftermarket. They make good stuff. What I really like about it is it add just a little weight to the gun, and it kind of helped balance it out a little bit. But it also provides a Picatinny rail, so I can put a bipod up here. So anyways, front stock's off. And next thing we're going to move on to is taking the top of the gun off. So it's going to require us moving this band here and removing some screws up here on the stock. Okay, there's 4 screws, Allen screws, holding the top onto the gun. So basically we're just going to take these out. Okay, as you can see, I've removed the upper from the lower. This is the fill tank. This is the barrel and shroud assembly. 4 screws holding it on. I removed the barrel band also, and it just slides off the end so I could get it apart. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set the barrel assembly aside for now, and we're going to concentrate on this down here. Okay, next we're going to remove the grip and trigger assembly from the tank, and to do that there's 2 screws, one here and one back here, and that'll allow the unit to come apart. This one back here is a little hard to get to due to the grip, but once you get them loosened up, it's not too bad. Now this front one, when the screw comes out of the front one, there's a little clip on it, and that other hole is to hold the front grip on. So we'll remove this back screw and we'll take this apart. Okay, now that we've got the trigger assembly off, the tube will part from the rear stalk, and what you see here is the hammer spring, and then the hammer spring guides in there. That spring can come off of there, and we can set that aside also. And we'll concentrate on the tube. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take this gauge off, and we're going to take this fill tube fitting off of the end where the fitting went for the air tube, or the air fill. So we'll take that off next. Air gauge, set that aside. Then we'll take this end cap off. Okay, now we got this end fitting out of the tube. There's an O-ring on it that'll need changed, so we'll set that aside until we're ready to address that. And then down here is your hammer, and this is the hammer pin, and all that will basically slide forward, and we'll be able to get it apart. But first thing we got to do is get the valve out of here, and then there's a small O-ring here on top of the air port. We'll have to make sure we don't lose that. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to take 1, 2, 3 screws out, and that'll allow us to push the valve out of there once we get the hammer and the hammer pin removed. So we'll do that next. Okay, so we're going to move the hammer clear to the rear of the tube, and there's a elongated opening here so I can get this hammer spring pin out. And just move it back there, wiggle that, pull it straight out. There it is. I should be able to pull the hammer on out the back. There's your hammer. So the next thing we got to do, now that I've taken these 3 screws out, is we'll get a piece of PVC and we'll push it into the end, and we'll push the valve all the way out to the end. And then the tube will be disassembled. Okay, we got a small piece of just PVC pipe here. We're going to stick it in the end of the tube, and we're going to push the valve out the other end. Okay, now that we've got all this stuff out, basically what you have here is your gauge port. This is your gauge port right here. So once this is all back assembled, the gauge will screw into this. You'll notice there's 2 O-rings on that. So we'll set those aside. This is a spacer that goes between the gauge port and the valve. Okay, so that goes there. And then here's your valve assembly. So there's an O-ring on that. And then what's left is your air tube. And we'll want to make sure we clean this out real well. so there isn't any debris in there or anything. And then we can start changing O-rings and then go back to reassembly. Okay, so we've got all these parts cleaned up, got the tube cleaned out. Spent a little time making sure, you know, all these holes and ports and various things are cleaned out. Wiped off the fill port assembly and the spacer, gauge, end cap, hammer spring, the hammer. So everything's kind of cleaned up and we're ready to change O-rings. So we're going to change the O-ring on the end cap assembly, the two on the fill tube. Let's do one on each end. Start in the valve assembly. There's one on the end here. And then when you unscrew this, take it apart. There's another one right here. That's all there is to it. So we're going to change all these O-rings and then we can start going back together. Okay guys, we have all the O-rings inside the air tube replaced, in the valve and the gauge port, and all that stuff's replaced. There's some O-rings up here on the fill probe where the fitting is, and then there's also one inside the end cap that goes over the end of this. So all that's rebuilt. One thing we did find wrong was we had a broken transfer port seal. As you can see right there, that one's broken in half. That one there is the other one, and then there's your transfer port. They go right here and right here. So what you have is, there's the new ones. Had to wait a couple days for those to get shipped, and finally got them today. So we'll be putting those in and then starting to reassemble the rifle. Okay, there's the new seals in the transfer port. You can see right there, there's a seal under that, and then the other seal's right there. And this part mates onto the top of this tube assembly. So next step is going to be to get those two halves joined together and start putting the stalks and scope and all that back on. Okay guys, got the trigger assembly back on, got the rear stalk back on with the hammer spring assembly in here. There's a bolt back here and a bolt up here to get the trigger assembly in the upper, and then there's these 4 screws here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And at this point I always check, make sure it'll cock and it'll fire, you know, the action works. So really all I need to do now is put the front stalk on and the scope, and then the barrel band up front here, and then we'll air it up, make sure it doesn't leak, and we'll try to shoot it and see, make sure everything operates okay. Okay guys, got my small pump and we're filling it up. I usually fill it up to 2,000 PSI. Okay guys, just got done checking the P-rod out on the my indoor basement range over there, and 50 feet. Everything functions properly. The 0 is right where I want it. Didn't have to change anything on the scope. And pretty simple rebuild, actually, other than I had to wait on some parts for a couple days. But yeah, Benjamin Marauder pistol carbine/carbine rebuild is complete, and it's ready to go to the dairy whenever we go next and do some hunting. And I think I might check it over the chrono tomorrow just to make sure my velocity hasn't changed, which it shouldn't, but it might have. But I want to make sure before we go to the barns so I don't shoot a hole in the roof. But thanks for watching. If you guys get a chance, subscribe to their channel. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. Helps the channel grow. We're a small channel trying to grow every day and every week and every month. And anything you guys can do to help us out, we appreciate. Hit the like button, leave a comment below. We'll try to get back with you if you have a question, or we try to get back to every comment. So, okay, guys, Airgun Retiree signing off from the compound. You guys take it easy. Bye.